Okay, so right now we want to talk a little bit about decomposing numbers. And this can be done in a lot of different ways. Expanded form is another way that's commonly used for that. So what expanded form is if I have something like 562, that is, as we say the words, we also indicate the place value for each of these different numerals. And that's an important thing that we practice saying things correctly, okay? Especially as teachers. The use of the word and, this is not 562. This is 562. When you have to also write these out in words, we start to use the hyphen, okay? And that's an important thing for students to start to understand. We got to see a little bit of that in third grade with students starting to write things out in words, and they're learning what that hyphen is, how to write these things out in a very clear way. And it makes sense, it makes that connection between the words and the symbols that we're using, okay? This expanded form, we just do 500 plus 60 plus 2, okay? And that really helps for students to see each of those place values, and we take a lot of time and emphasize that here, okay? But if I think about numbers, and friendly numbers is a common term, and so things that are friendly numbers, 10 is a friendly number because we have 10 fingers, okay? Very friendly, very comfortable with that. 5 is often another one. 100 would also be one that's very friendly. So this could be seen as that 500 plus 62, okay? Also, it can be seen as 600 minus 38, okay? Both of these are all the exact same value represented in different ways, okay? And so, I mean, we could break this down, multiplication, division style, all those different things. Addition and subtraction are probably where we use this most often, because when we get into big, complex equations, and we've got like this huge polynomial, it's like, whoa, that's huge, gigantic. If we can start to shave off parts that we can deal with, like 62, I know how to deal with 62, then students have a better understanding about what that number is, what I can do with it, and I see this chunk, and I can deal with each one of these. This is an easy 3-digit number. This is only a 2-digit number. I can handle both of those independently, but when I see it all together, it's too much for students, okay? So being able to decompose numbers into things that we're more familiar with, more comfortable with, and recognize that we have the skills to be able to deal with them is really the goal of decomposing numbers, okay? So any of these are all the exact same value, okay? And so as we talk about numbers, we're really talking about the value that they represent. Numbers are different ways of representing that same value in, whatever way we need to. And this is where a lot of students see things differently than what we do, okay? I look at 562 and I know that I can deal with that. I can handle 562, but I'm a big kid, okay? Some kids aren't going to look at that and pee their pants. It's over, they're done, okay? But when I break it into this, 500, I can deal with 500. 500 is a nice number. 62 is not too big. Deal with each one of those independently and then just add them back together, okay? Now their anxiety levels are a lot lower. Now they're a lot more willing to approach this problem, okay? And it's interesting how often we may need to do these kinds of little decomposing of a number so that way students are more comfortable with it, okay? So, as we think about some of the other numbers, when I think about 98, okay? 98, in my mind, a lot of times I think about it as 100 minus 2, okay? Because then whenever I'm doing something with 98 in it, so I've got 347 minus 98, okay? Now, if I actually do this process as it's written, okay, 7 minus 8, I've got to start borrowing. There's borrowing all over the place that I've got to do, okay? But if I think in my mind about 347 minus 100 minus 2, right? And this is kind of a complex thing, and I lined it up like this because we're going to do, and this is where like distributing that negative is really going to be an important thing. And so kids may not fully understand it, okay? So we say, okay, we're going to deal with this 2 independently. We won't talk about it as the distributive property, okay? So we're going to take away 100, but that's 2 different than 100. That's 2 less than 100, right? So I take away 100. There's no borrowing required at all, okay? That was easy to do. Now I still have this that I've got to deal with, okay? But I'm minusing a negative, right? We see that, we think, oh, minusing a negative, you're going to add that on, okay? But I'm saying I didn't go down that full 100. I was 2 less than that full 100. So my number is not as far down as I thought it was, plusing 2, right? Staying the logic that we see, subtracting a negative, same as adding a positive. So my final answer is 249 for this, okay? But that was a lot easier to do. I didn't have to borrow a thing, okay? I minus 100, easy. I know how to minus 100, and then I had to add 2. It's a lot easier than when I actually walk through this and say, well, we're going to have to borrow from here, so that's going to go down to 3. And that becomes 17, 9. Oh, 3 minus 9 can't do that. Going to go 2 and 13 and 4 and 2. Oh my goodness, do you see that these are the exact same, okay? Now some students are totally ready for this, but other students are not. So the fact that we decompose this number did make this problem in and of itself more complicated. Like, I don't know that, complicated is an interesting word for it. It had separate steps, but in truth, this is more compact and really a lot more steps happened in here. That borrowing and then the subtraction, and each column went over. Here we did one column and then another column. We didn't even have to carry anything, okay? So being able to see that, what 98 is, as 100 minus 2, and similar things for 105, well that's 100 plus 5. So I can deal with the 100, then I deal with the 5. So decomposing numbers into their parts and working into them is a lot more simple for students, but sometimes we have to write it out, and that's something we are not used to as teachers and instructors, to be able to show what all is happening here. Now, especially for those early students, this is distribution, okay? In truth, we're doing 347 minus 100 minus 2, right? Well, we would distribute this to both spots. So it would be 347 minus 100, and then subtracting it plus 2, right? Which we did that as 2 separate things, here and then here. And students, even as they get older, will still understand that concept and being able to do it. Now, when I do this with something like a polynomial, or I've got variables in there, that's not too weird for them. So it's really helping them see it, get more comfortable with the problem that they have, and be able to feel like they can approach it.